Hello everyone, welcome back. This is part 2 of the series Pandas Interview Sample Questions. Before watching this series, I would request you to go ahead and watch the part 1 of it where I have discussed about the dataset, how the dataset looks like, what are each of the attribute means. I may not go in detail about the dataset in this series. You must know the detail about the dataset, what are its column, how to relate it with the real-time business to further understand the questions that we are going to answer in this sequence. Also, I will now directly take you to the questions and will try to solve them with real-time examples here on the videos. The agenda of the video is same as what I said last time. Here, we will be exploring the key methods in DataFrame, and we also want to not just explore them, make use of them with the real time, and also identify how can we relate these methods with an equivalent SQL statement. This is going to be very important because in interviews, you'll be given a data set and mostly it will be mentioned to do it specifically with data frame. However, sometimes they will also cross question you asking, okay, so can you relate this operation of data frame with the SQL statement or the SQL clause, and you can do that only if you know their relationship. So let's quickly jump to the data set. To import the data set, which is in a CSV form right now, I have made use of Pandas package. We may not need NumPy for data set reading. However, right now it's being imported. We may need them further for answering our questions. The dataset is read using pd.read_csv. PD is nothing but pandas.read_csv API since the dataset is in CSV form. If your dataset is in some other form like Excel, or if you want to read it from the database, you have to make use of other corresponding APIs given in this particular package. If you look, the sample dataset is shown here. This dataset is compiled from a real-time business, but yes, certainly the values are slightly changed so that the data security does not get impacted. We have total of 488 records in this dataset. It's a time series data, and there are 5 attributes attached to it. So briefly, if I describe what this tells you, it is for every customer, what sort of orders are placed, that's being described by the dataset. A customer can place n number of orders within the same day or across the days. So here the day, what you see order date, that represents the date on which the order was placed. And whenever an order is being placed, it can be placed by a different line of business. As I said, a line of business could be the platforms via which you place your order online. A website is also one of the line of business. An app can be a second line of business. And then maybe the company will have some collaboration with the third-party portal. So if you are placing the order from third-party portal, that can also be one of the line of business. And then the total sales represents the total amount being paid for the order being placed. Order number, what you see, that's a unique number, and it will be all unique for every customer. It cannot be duplicated. Coming to customer, a customer ID can repeat in this data set again and again. However, that may not repeat in combination of an order date, right? And so overall, this data explains and it tells you about a data set for a customer who places order across days, and the information is collected at the daily level, and then through the certain line of business, and the total amount being spent while placing the order. Now let me walk you through the questions that I'm going to answer in this sequence, and by using Pandas as a API. All right, so here is the first question that you can answer using DataFrame. Now, this question need not be in your interview, the question that you get need not be exactly same, but of the similar kind. if you really go and understand it, it's trying to ask you to make use of a specific method and answer this question. The whole purpose of this sort of interview questions will be to make sure if you are familiar with the data frame methods, and do you realize and do you understand which method should be used in for what purpose. That is very important. If you cannot make out that decision, how will you work in your day-to-day project? That could be a question mark. So that's the reason. Here is the question, and let's go ahead and try to answer it using data frame. So the question says, which customer has placed maximum number of orders? So what we have learned here, this data set represents the orders being placed by the users at the daily basis. And then the orders could it also have an extra information like through which line of business the order is being placed and what is the total order amount. But right now we are not interested into knowing the line of business or order amount or date information. We're just interested to know which customer has placed maximum orders so far. Before getting exactly to this question, which you can do in interviews, nobody will bother to see if what extra you're doing. Certainly your answer will be considered valid only if you answered specific to this question. Anything extra is an optional, but I would always recommend for you to go ahead and first try to explore the data, understand the data some better way before actually start answering to the question. Because if you'll have some extra information, the chance of making any sort of mistake while answering the question would be very, very less or maybe negligible, depending on how detailed you explore in the given time. So first here, I would like to understand how many distinct customers are there. So which you can get this way, data frame dot customer ID. You have to go ahead and select the column which represents the customer ID. And then you can get the distinct count by making use of NUnique. NUnique is nothing, but it's a method that applies in a series and gives you the count of N distinct unique count, which is nothing but 12. So in our data set where we have 488 records and 5 columns, this has 12 distinct customer information. Okay, so this data set has information, order information only for 12 customers. However, in real time, you can have 100 and 200 and even thousands of customers. By the way, if you are not sure, this operation is equivalent to, in SQL, if you have to relate with SQL query, it's equivalent to select count of distinct customer ID from, let's say, table, I call it table 1. And that's the equivalent SQL statement. So you see in SQL, you write so long query, but if you do that, the same thing using data frame, just one single method and the task is done for you, right? Okay, now let's, given that we know a single customer, there are 12 distinct customers, and let's understand if a customer has multiple same order being placed or the orders are distinct for every customer. Well, you can answer that question even from here, looking at through the data here. Although it may not be visible, but right now it's already visible in my sample data set. So I'm making use of that information without further digging into it by writing extra code. However, if that will not be visible, it is always advisable to double check it before giving any conclusion, right? So if you see here, these are same customers. In fact, record number 1, 2, and 3, they are the details of the same customer, and these are the details of the same, even in fact, order ID. So what that says, the customer has made 3 purchase in an order ID. So you may be wondering, how can I have 3 different order number in the data on the same date? If I'm placing some order now, and let's say I come back 1 hour again after an hour and place another order, shouldn't I get a new order ID? Well, that's right, you would get. But why there are 3 records by the same ordered ID for the same customer on the same date and by on the same line of business in the given data? If you carefully see, they are not duplicates. I wouldn't conclude them duplicates yet. The reason is if you look at the total sales amount for each of this line, the sales amount are varying. So what that indicates? That indicates probably there is some more granularity of this data. It's all that we do not see it in the sample data we have. It is possible that in an order, there could be n number of items. In this case, there could be 3 number of items, right? So there should be one more column representing item number, which let me place it this way. There could be one more column. Ideally, there should be one more column in the data, which you don't see here, which should represent item number. So the item number here will be different than here and then here. And that's how this record will be different, right? In an order, there can be a number of items. When you purchase something on Amazon, you purchase 10, 20 items, right? But when you pay for them, each of these items will have different unit prices. But overall, when you place an order, they all come under a single order ID, and that's what this is. So there are 3 different items being placed. We don't know exactly as of now what are their individual units. Maybe they are all same or different. That information is not yet revealed. However, by this we understand there are 3 different items placed under same order ID, and for each of these items, these are the individual unit prices, and that's the reason you have 3 different records, right? So while counting the record number of orders, you have to make sure you do not count these 3 records as 3 different orders, but rather it should be counted as a single order. So that we have to take care, and we should not count them 3 times, rather 1 time. Keeping that in mind, you have to decide which method to use. Can I use count? So, well, since it is also asking you to get this information for every user, the reason is if you get it for every customer, then only you will be able to see who has placed maximum order and who has not placed. And how can you do that? Well, so you can do that with the help of group by. DataFrame group by is very sophisticated, very advanced tools, which helps you to perform group level aggregations very much effective way. So I'm going to answer this question this way. df dot group by. I have to group by on what? I have to group by on customer ID, and then do what? I have to count order number. So I go ahead, select my order number, and then count it. But wait on, is this the right thing I'm doing? Do I have to count it? And if I count, is that right? Let's understand. So you need to be very much careful about choosing the method while doing this operation. Otherwise, it can lead to blunders like this one. Okay, it gave you some values. All right, good, fine. Are you able to read it? If not, what should you do it? Okay, you can do multiple things. Let me do that, what each of these values represent, and then you'll be better able to read this. So rename, I'm renaming my columns, and there it goes. So I call it order ID as count of order ID. Okay, or count of orders, right? And there it goes. I think this is a better readability for you. You see, so what did I do exactly? So I have, again, I have just perform my group level operation. I have reset it, then rename my column. Well, nobody will say you this task to be done in interviews, but again, if you do it, it's better for you. The reason is the data group by method does not return the better readable data column names. So you have to make sure to rename them properly so that anybody who comes, when this information is shared across the interviewers, they should be able to understand what you have got very easily, right? Okay, so now here if you see, We have got some information. This basically says this customer has placed 18 orders. Well, but is that right? We need to validate. How can we validate that? So you can do this by knowing out of what you already know. Go ahead and cross validate. Look for this user specifically in the given object. How many orders are getting? By the way, how many are you expecting is the question. Well, I cannot conclude how many should I expect. So what will I do? You have to go ahead and basically look for, make sure how many orders are being placed by this user. How can you do that? Do the subsetting. What is subsetting? Filter operation. Go ahead and select the data specifically for this customer ID. I selected them and there it goes. And you see there are just 3 records for this customer ID. So what we were estimating that there should be just single order being placed by this user, which is now correct. Please understand this data can be sorted or not sorted. You don't know. So you have, if it's sorted and if you already know that information, I could have even concluded just looking at this one. But I wasn't sure if my data is sorted or not. And even I have not done any sort of sorting. So I wanted to confirm. You can confirm either through subsetting or you can do that by manually sorting the data. So I could have gone any ways. But anyway, here if you see, there are just 3 records for the given customer ID. And of course, this customer has placed only 1 order. Of course, there are 3 different items in an order, but we have just a single order. And so for this customer ID, when I'm counting the order, I should get a count of 1. Let's see what we have got from this operation that you see, aggregation at the customer ID level. So how can I validate it? So what you should do, you should store this object. This is not yet stored. I call it, okay, order count. I call it order count. I have saved the order count. Now go to order count and then again do the filter operation, right? So that's your order count. You see you have a customer ID. On this, you can go and select the detail for this particular customer ID, where customer ID is this one, and that gives you a value of 3. So what this code of mine has returned, that is nothing but it's according to that code, it tells me, look, your customer, given customer, let's call it out 152, that has placed 3 orders so far. But you see, that's not right. That's not right. This customer has placed only 1 order. There are 3 records in my data set, but 3 records is not equivalent to 3 order. 3 distinct order. They are all same order, but counted 3 times. So what I should do now, I have to make sure to count it this same order, even repeating multiple times as a single order. I should not count it 3 different times if it occurs 3 different times. So how can I correct this out? Well, to correct that out, you have to understand this. First, understand if the same operation you were supposed to perform using SQL, what would be the equivalent SQL statement? So it could have been something like this: select count customer ID, okay, from, I call it table 1, group by okay, not customer ID. We have to select order ID. I'm sorry for that. So you are selecting order ID and you are grouping it by customer ID. And since I also did a kind of rename operations, let me rename here too. If you have to do rename in SQL, that would be just using as operator aliasing, right? So this would have been the code. But again, as I said, the fault and the issue, this sort of code will work if your every record in your data is distinct or unique. But in our case, that is not happening. Our order number is repeated for the same customer, same data, and even in fact, same line of business again and again. In that case, I have to do a small change and there is a change. So in SQL, how do you get the distinct count? You do it by adding distinct keyword, right? The equivalent change that you have to do when working with data frame would be, instead of using count method, don't use count. Count counts every row as one record, which need not be correct, which may be counting duplicate records. So what should you do? You should call here n unique. Yes, it is the same n unique that you used here to get the distinct customer ID. So n unique is used to count the distinct records, not all records, distinct records, and that you can use along with group by operation. If you do that, let me run it and let me rerun my subsetting. Remember, once I'm running this code now, whatever we have in the latest order count, that will be used as a data here. So it gives me a count of 1 now. So you see, n unique has basically counted now each order, considering the fact if it's a unique or not, if it's repeated or not, excluding the repetition, right? So this would be the answer. Now, although we have done a lot of extra stuff, the interviewer may not want to see all the trial that we have done here. You can directly go ahead and give this as your answer, this much, not even, you don't even have to save it. I did it saving as an object because I wanted to validate it. However, if you're sure with your code and you can just go and paste this much of code along under the answer of this question, that should be sufficient from the interview perspective, right? And yeah, the writing of the SQL statement was for your better understanding to relate what operations are equivalent SQL operation are you performing when you write a certain code in DataFrame. If you can relate to that, your life will be very easier whenever you will switch to SQL and DataFrame or maybe working together on the project, right? So that's the answer to your first question. Let's jump to the next question. Hold on, you have not supposed to leave now. The reason is simple. Didn't realize we did an operation, but did that answer completely to my question? What is my question asking? It is asking me to identify that customer who did place maximum orders. So your task is not yet complete. Good that you got the count of order for every customers, but have you identified the customer who has placed maximum order out of all the customers? Not yet. So this needs you to do one more step to answer that question, which I could have done through chaining of method in the same line, but for your simplicity of understanding and for me also to explain it and show you the intermediate result, I'm going to do it in the next line. So given that I know this object, which is also a data frame, now has a count of orders information for every customer ID. And from this, if I have to, there should be exactly number of records in this object equivalent to the number that you got here, which represents distinct user or customer ID. So since there are 12, please make sure this object should always have 12 records. It cannot be more than 12 because group by method returns the number of records equivalent to the number of groups are formed, okay? And this is your group on which you are forming or splitting the data right now. Right, so I have to still identify the user who has placed maximum orders. So how can I do that? Given that you know for every user what is the number of orders that's being placed, you can just get that by sorting this data in descending form on count of orders, and then that should be your answer. So one step more is required to answer this question, and that will be you have to sort this object sort underscore values using the method sort underscore values. You have to sort it on what? On count of orders. That is nothing but your second record. I want to sort it on the second record. And of course, by default, sort underscore values sorts the data in ascending order. As you see, all the records where you have lesser the value that will be placed first. But I want to just reverse it, which you can do by passing the ascending equal to false flag, and there it goes. and look at the customer. So customer ID 3290. I'm just reading out the last 4 digits. 3290 is the one who has placed maximum orders so far, and the order count is 248. So really, to answer this question, your answer should be that you should hand over to the interviewer customer ID. This one has placed maximum order. And if you're interested, you can go ahead and give that number, which should be 248. That's the order count. And that should be your answer. Of course, you can't leave it in a code cell. You have to basically go ahead and add it as a mark self column. And this answers the question of my statement. Well, if you really want to leave it as it is, you can leave. However, if you really want to permanently sort the data, then in that case, you have to set in place equal to true. And that gives me an answer. Next line, you go ahead, you do your order count dot head, and on top, that should be the customer. Or these are the, or other way I can say, these are the top 5 customers who have placed maximum orders, and this is the order, right? So 3290 is the customer who placed maximum. The next maximum is placed by 6225. The next is from 3958 and so on, right? And this gives answer to your first question, and thereby you should stop from question 1 perspective. In the next sequence, we'll take up the next question that you can likely get, that similar kind of the question you can likely get during the interviews. By the way, if you notice in this exercise, just to answer this question, we have make use of so many methods indirectly. Few of the times it's done for better readability purpose, which may not be even asked, but it's as a good practice, we must do it, like renaming the column. That wasn't required, but we should do it. We should practice a good way of renaming our columns for the better readability, better understanding when this data is shared with somebody else. On second, if you see this extra validation, this was not even asked to do, but we did it because we wanted to cross check if the methods that I have used or the operation that I'm doing, is it right? Am I choosing something right method or wrong method? So that your answer should be correct, because no, the interviewer will not come here to say, look, you are making a mistake, if you are actually making or not making a mistake. You have to make sure you pass the right answer to the interviewer. So you are the one who is responsible to validate your result before sharing with the interviewer, right? And then and this ascending, and this was the required thing. Okay, this you must do in order to present your data in the right form before with a proof. When you're see, whenever you are concluding, look, this customer's 3290 has placed maximum order, you should have some fact that can support it. You cannot blindly say. And so when you sort your data and display it, then after sorting, then that even that's shown, right? So the interviewer is bound to believe, okay, your analysis is right, because that's what it's being displayed in the data. So you have to do this step. Although it will not be asked to do, you can go ahead, since there are just 12 records, you can go ahead and manually check which customer is having maximum number of orders placed, and you can write your answer. That's fine. The interviewer is okay with that also, but as a good practice, you must sort the data and present it. Okay, look, what I'm saying is right, not because I say it, that's because data says it. So what answer I have got is all supported by the data. So you have to believe me. And those are the few small steps, but very crucial steps that can make you get selected in the interview compared to any other candidates who just neglect. That basically shows how dedicated you are to answer this question, or for your profession, or for the job profile you have applied for and you are interviewing right now. So please take care of this small steps, so that your chance of rejection is completely ignored, and you get selected, and at least the interviewer gets impressed and thinks of how twice before rejecting you and taking you to the next round. By the way, mostly in interviews, that after Python testing, the next round could be on SQL testing. If you're interested to know, so that's the reason what sort of SQL question can come up. You can watch my second videos, which I'll leave in the description box. What are the important methods that being tested in the SQL? If you can learn them, that should be sufficient. I'm telling you, mostly in 99% of the interviews, those methods specifically will be tested in SQL if there is an interview on SQL for data scientist role. So I see you in the next video with the second question. Till then, have a happy learning.